What's going on, guys? Chris here with Clutter Reduction Junk Removal in Palm Beach County, Florida. And today I wanted to talk about a couple of pieces of equipment I recommend everyone to have on their jobs, whether you do this solo or even if you have employees. And I'll talk about some of the reasons why and some of the stuff you can use it for, and per each piece of equipment, which ones I personally recommend using, because each one typically has a little bit of a variety to it. Alright, the first thing we're going to start with is the hand truck. That is probably the most commonly used piece of equipment for anyone who is moving stuff, whether it is boxes, furniture, whatever. It is universally found. You can get one at Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace Hardware, Harbor Freight. You can buy it online. You can get it at any kind of supply store that handles hardware. But there are different qualities to it, and there are different things you should look for if you're getting it for junk removal and or moving. So there's two things I want to point out. One is the handle. The second thing is the wheels. And I'll tell you why I think this is important. So when it comes to the handle, the reason why I think this one right here is the best one to use is because of the fact that you can use it easier when you're pulling and or pushing. So typically there's about 3 different kinds of handles. You have this. You have one set up where it's just a little knob that sticks out on each side. So when you walk, you're like this. And you'll have one kind of like the ones that stick out on the side, but they go up into a bar, right? So it's like a little bridge almost. The problem with the ones that stick up just on the side, so it's not like you're doing a hammer curl at the gym, is it's good to do that with boxes or something that's a little smaller in size. But when you get into the bigger pieces where you need a little bit more leverage, so let's say you have an armoire or maybe a big dresser with a granite top on it, or just a big heavy dresser in general, this is where this comes in handy, because I can not only pull it backwards, I can control it when I go downstairs. It's away from the piece, so I have a little bit more momentum to pull back, create a little bit more leverage. And the reason why this is better, in my opinion, than the one that kind of comes up like this is you're pulling from something that connects to each side, whereas this is kind of dead center in the middle. Now, you could pull that one bar in the middle like this, or with one hand, that's fine, but I personally just find this to be a little bit more natural, to have your hand in a neutral grip versus like this or like this. That's just my opinion though as a mover. Now, the next thing is the type of wheels. So, these are hard rubber wheels. This is not inflated with air. These are not plastic. They are hard rubber. I don't know the name of it, to be honest with you. But the purpose of it is to prevent flats and or inflation under heavy use. So, let's say you have your green, black, or red dollies that have the rubber wheels that you inflate with air. The problem with those is not only if you run over a nail, it's going to puncture the same way as your car tire, but if you have a really heavy piece on it, it's going to flatten the wheel a little bit, and it makes it a little harder to move. So with these, you don't have to worry about that. So I personally go for anything like this. Alright, next up is the second most common piece of moving equipment that pretty much everyone in their right mind owns, especially if you have a generator or something heavy in your garage, and that is a four-wheeler, or a dolly as I call it. I call the pulley a hand truck, I call this a dolly. You can call it a four-wheeler, a cart, whatever you want to call it. But the beautiful thing about this is you can put pretty much anything on it. So you have a heavy dresser, you have a large box, you have stacks of boxes, you have an armoire piece, you lay it all down. Instead of using it on the hand truck, you don't have to worry about leverage as much. You just lay down on this and you roll it right out the door. Now, the main thing to really look out for these, typically, is just the weight capacity. Some of them only hold 250 to 500 pounds. The better quality are usually between 600 to 1,200 pounds. Some of them even get up to a couple thousand pounds. But for typical general moving use and or junk removal, I would recommend something like this. This, I believe, is a 1,200 pound capacity. Now, the thing you want to look for is the type of wheel, right? This is a 3.5 inch rubber casting wheel. The problem with getting the little dinky guys with the carpet on top that look really nice and pretty, but the wheels are like this big. You usually find them at Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart for like 20, 30 bucks. They're cheap and affordable, yes. But the problem with those little tiny wheels and the little lightweight thing that weighs 5 pounds is that if you have a heavy dresser on it and you hit a crack, there's a good chance that that dresser is going to go, it's going to slide because the wheels are too small to catch any kind of resistance. So I personally like to go for these. They also don't wear down as fast, and because they're rubber, they catch with friction a little bit better versus the plastic that just kind of slides all over the place. Now, the last thing, and this is probably my most requested thing to talk about and or to send a link about where to purchase, and probably the main thing I talk about the most on the channel because it is not as commonly known unless you are a mover, and even if you are, if your moving company even supplies them, and that is a mattress bar. I've talked about these on a lot of my videos. These are beautiful little configurations. These are stainless steel, mended all the way around, so it creates a nice little rectangle with the rounded corners. Got little J hooks at the bottom to slide right onto the four-wheeler. And what you use these for is anything you want that can fit between the gap on a four-wheeler. I'll go ahead and put them on and show you. Now, the beautiful thing about these is if you've ever moved a really heavy king-size floppy mattress, like I'm talking thick, heavy, it just falls on the ground, you can't even lift it up. I've moved far too many of them as a mover. If you've ever dealt with that, you know how much of a pain it is, especially if it doesn't have those little handles on the side that are just oh so convenient. That why don't all mattress companies do that? I don't know. But the great thing about these is not only do you have a dolly that you can put the weight on to alleviate for you, but now you have supports on the side to hold it up for you. That is a beautiful thing about these little things. Such an easy design. Just imagine that I am a 200-pound, flimsy, heavy, thick, king-size mattress. Right? You put me right inside. Now when I go to full, I can only go so far. Everything's supported. It's amazing. But that's not all you can put in here. No, no, no. Anything you can fit between this gap that will sit on the dolly without flip-flopping all over the place, you can use. Plywood pieces if you're a contractor, piping if you're a plumber, granite pieces, marble pieces. Keep in mind there is a weight limit before these things start to bend or snap the dolly, but for the most part, anything flat or large or bulky, as long as it can fit between this gap, you can wheel it. So I personally obviously use it for mattresses. I also will use it to load up picture frames or mirror pieces or glass pieces, granite pieces, wood, pieces of wood like lumber. Say someone broke down a fence and there's just a bunch of scraps of wood. I'll load it up and bring it out to my trailer. I'll stuff it full of miscellaneous items and just put 2 flat pieces on the outside to kind of create like a cart. I've used it to load up hundreds of pounds of rolled up carpet that was torn off of an apartment floor, and I did 2 trips for a 1,200 square foot apartment. Just stick it all up, roll it to my truck, throw it in, you're done. Like, you cannot go wrong with these things. And they're a little pricey, but they're not terrible. I would say on average you're probably looking at about $50 to $80 per a bar, so altogether about 100 to 180 bucks, give or take. And you can typically find them at any moving supply store or online. Now, you unfortunately can't get them in somewhere like Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart, but if you just look up your area, moving supply or moving warehouse, and just scroll past all your franchises because their SEO is probably going to pull that up too. go ahead and find somewhere that sells bulk moving supplies like boxes, shrink wrap tape, bubble wrap, packing material, all that stuff. You can probably just go online or call them. They probably sell hand trucks, dollies, and mattress bars, plus a lot of other things that can be very helpful, but optional. I personally find these 3 pieces of equipment to be the most favorable and the most efficient for getting my job done when I was a mover and now as a junk removal. Now, granted, I do about 95% of my jobs by myself, but the great thing about these is that they can be very beneficial even if you have employees, and I'll talk about that in a second. The last thing I want to talk about is not a piece of equipment, but more of an accessory, and that is tape. Just tape. Now, not to get confused with packaging tape like you see at the store that's clear and really sticky, and it usually comes on a little gun to go ahead and tear off so you can just package your boxes all nice and neat. No, I'm talking about movers tape. This is tape that if you've ever had someone move you before and they cover everything with the blankets and they tape stuff and shrink wrap it, this is typically the tape that they're going to be using. It might be a little bit lighter of a tan color, it might even be clear, but I promise you it's going to be the same quality. And the good thing about this tape is that it is really easy to tear. So, let me show you. I won't even pause the clip. Ready? 2 fingers. Boom, done. Now, you might be wondering, why am I recommending tape when we're not a mover? Here's the thing. This can save you property damage. This can make it slightly easier to move certain pieces. I won't get into all the examples because honestly it's a pretty limitless kind of list, but I will go into some of the few that I've recommended on former videos to help you guys out from preventing wall damage. Now, as a mover, property damage is probably the biggest thing we have. Everything that we move gets wrapped up in blankets, it gets properly protected, it gets moved with care. The problem is everything around that piece. I'm more worried about the piece I'm moving sometimes than the drywall that I'm bringing it down. I promise you, I'm being careful of everything, but there's a good chance that the wall is going to get hit first if anything, because that's an easy fix. So, tape comes in handy when, let's say for example, you have a dresser that you stand up on its side and you put it on the four-wheeler so it's standing upright, and you're wheeling down a hallway, and maybe you go to turn a little bit too fast, or maybe you hit a little bump in the carpet or the floor or whatever. There's a good chance that any doors that would naturally go downwards is going to fly open. Now, if you're turning a corner, you're not paying attention, and something flies down, you just created an additional 12 to 14 inches of space that you weren't already accounting for, and there's a good chance you might strike a drywall, and if you do, it's probably going to leave a mark, whether it's a hole, a scratch, an indent, or whatever. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. You can also use this to tape together a carpet. You can use it to tape together box springs, so you can take out 2 at a time instead of just 1. You can tape together a box spring and a mattress. I used to do that a lot with moving to save time. Let's say you have you can't really do it a king. Let's say you have a queen mattress and a queen box spring. Maybe you don't have your mattress bars, or you're going down flights of stairs. You tape them together, one above the top about 2 feet down, one in the bottom about 2 feet up. Tape it a horizontal band once or twice, make it tight. You go ahead and you just pin them up on a dolly facing outwards. You pull it back, there you go. It's a little tricky, but you can do it. And all it's doing is saving time. But you can also use it to tape, couch cushions to a couch instead of taking them off separately, so you don't have to go back and make a second trip. It's all just to prevent property damage or collateral damage in general, or for the fact that you're having to make multiple trips. Maybe you have a glass piece, like a dresser with a glass piece on the top that just kind of sits in place. That's fine if you're going to keep the piece flat, but if you're going to stand it up on a dolly, that piece is likely going to fall out. So you use this to tape the glass together so it doesn't fall on you. So things like that is where tape comes in handy. It's super cheap. If it saves you 5 minutes, guess what? You probably just paid for a roll of tape. And if it saves you damage, it just saved you a lot more than that. Now, to wrap this video up, because it's starting to get a little dark out, I want to talk about some of the reasons behind getting equipment that makes your job a little bit more efficient and easy. And the majority of it comes down to time. Time can save you money. Why? Because you typically are paying your workers or yourself by your time, right? So junk removal isn't necessarily charged by time unless you're doing a clean out or you have a long walk or stairs or whatever. You might tack on a few minutes, but overall we're charged by volume. So let's say, for example, you are doing a condo clean out in a high-rise apartment building. Let's say you're on like the 20th floor. The problem with high-rise buildings that have elevators isn't the fact that it's an elevator. The problem is the amount of floors you're hitting creates more opportunities for somebody to hit that call button and stop your elevator. So it could very easily take you what would be just 30 seconds from the 20th floor to the first floor, a couple of minutes, maybe 5-6 minutes, because you're having to stop, say, sorry, you can't come in, we have a bunch of stuff in here, it's not safe. Wait for the door to close again, go to the next floor, repeat that process. You might get a stubborn person that wants to squeeze in there. I've had it happen. So that is what causes more time, right? On top of the fact that maybe you have a long walk to get from the apartment to the elevator, and then from the elevator to your truck, you're likely not parking right by the elevator. So let's say on average, it takes each person about a 7-minute trip to go downstairs, okay? Let's say you have a king mattress and you don't have mattress bars. Each guy is gonna grab one end of it and carry it downstairs. You can only fit so many things in your hands, and a king mattress is gonna take up the majority of the hands. So 2 guys are now taking 6 minutes to go downstairs to bring out one piece. If you had mattress bars, you put the king mattress in the mattress bars, now it takes 1 guy to go downstairs. You just saved 6 minutes of overall time. Say it's a 4-man crew, it's a big condo clean out, you're probably going to be making quite a few trips. Let's say you save 6 minutes every time, and you're able to save yourself 10 trips. That's an hour. That's not just an hour off of 1 guy, that's an hour off of 4 guys, right? So if the job takes 5 hours now instead of 6 hours, you're paying 4 less total hours to have all your guys there. So just by using one piece of equipment extra, you just saved yourself on average, what, 80 to 100 bucks in labor? And that's just a one-time fee. Say you use this for 5 years. Think about how much money you could be saving. So that's where using equipment not only makes things more efficient and easier on your employees, so they're not as stressed, they're not tired, they're not as grumpy, and you're preventing injury because of all the things you're having to lift up that are heavy and awkward. You're putting your body in weird positions. The equipment serves a purpose of preventing all of that from having to happen. I mean, you could still get hurt, but you're alleviating that pressure you're having to put on your body, and you're saving time. So that is why I like to promote these things. And at the end of the day, this isn't for me to do my job. It makes my job doable. All right. I can't carry out a large 6-drawer dresser with a granite top. I can't carry it by my hands. I have to use a dolly or somebody else to help me carry it. But if I don't have somebody else, or I don't want to employ somebody else, I can do it by myself. If I do have somebody else, guess what? That's one less piece of furniture that you both have to carry. Saves you a little bit of energy. And at the end of the day, energy and the time are the 2 things we can't get back. So that is why I recommend these. I am not a professional in terms of the kind of equipment that gets designed. I am not saying that other equipment won't work. I am not saying you have to get this. I'm just recommending my opinion about the type of furniture that I am used to using as a former professional mover and as a solo junk removal hauler, and just knowing for a fact that the field I came from, this stuff works. So that is it from me. I will put in the description some of the places to get the mattress bars and or what to kind of Google to try to find a moving supply warehouse if you're interested in trying to find any of these things. Again, for the quality of the 3 pieces I have, you're probably looking at about $100 to $200 each. So it'll be a little bit of an investment versus going to Home Depot and getting $100 for, a cheap little hand truck and a cheap dolly that could get the job done, no doubt. But this just makes it a little easier. So that's it for me. I hope this was at least somewhat informative. But we're going to go ahead and drop this off and then head home, and we'll see you guys later on. Thanks for watching. Bye.